Hello automators, thanks for tuning in again. One of our most popular videos here are the Google Home new features, new updates, and new products videos that I run here. Every couple of weeks, I basically put out all the latest features and all the latest products that are related to the Google Home, the Google Assistant, and you see some of these partner products that basically Google puts out over the years. Now, that is so popular because so many people want new functionality and new capabilities with their home automation and smart home products. Now, what I want to do today is give you a full review of the 2018 year and go through basically how Google did and give you an idea then of how far they're going to move in 2019. So let's get going. Now, of course, when we talk about 2018, we're going to talk about 2019 and where some of those things are going, but ultimately, I have a whole separate 2019 predictions video coming out for you here right in the new year. So let's get going through what Google did in 2018. And really, when I think about Google's year, it comes down to two events. We saw Google I/O, and then we saw the Google hardware event. So earlier in the year, Google puts out Google I/O. They do their conference and blows the world apart with Google Duplex and some of the functionality we saw with the lens on Maps and that integration between Maps and Google Assistant, and just so many new capabilities coming out for the Google Assistant. Then we switch over to the hardware event where we saw the Pixel 3, the Google Home Hub here, and actually Google was a little behind in terms of releasing a smart display because Lenovo had already been out there. So, those were really the big releases that day from Google: the Pixel 3, the Pixel 3 XL, and the Google Home Hub. We also saw other product releases, but we'll get to those shortly. Now, on top of all of that, Google was also out there to try and become a multinational or an international force with their home and life automation products. So what they did this year, they promised this relatively early. 30 different countries or 30 different languages would be added to the Google Assistant. And while they haven't necessarily released them all officially, almost everyone is sitting there today. And and when you think about the expansion into countries like Italy, India, Spain, we've seen the Netherlands and Norway and Sweden. There's a number of countries that got the Google Home products as well as Google Assistant related products over 2018. So there was this massive expansion in trying to go international. Now, coupled with that are, of course, the capabilities related to languages that we saw. So all of these devices can now speak two languages to you, and you can interchange per command or per question or query that you want to ask these devices. So you can actually set two languages, and this was put out kind of mid to late year. They put out the capability of having two languages on the device and switching between them. Now, in terms of new products that we saw come out, this probably people don't even remember this, but Google Clips was actually released this year, and you don't see it here and you don't see it in a lot of places because, to be honest, the rollout wasn't very big, it wasn't very powerful, they weren't pushing this product. But I think the idea of Clips was to start working with some of what was coming in these products. And if you think forward again to Google I/O and then the hardware event, the capabilities of image processing showing up on the Pixel 3 and the capabilities of that Maps integration with the Google Assistant really comes from some of that early stuff with Clips. So that was a different product, and I don't think we're ever going to see Google Clips go huge, but ultimately, that was their first release and their first foray into image processing at such a massive level. Now, we've talked about the Google Home Hub. Here's the Aqua version of the Google Home Mini. Those were releases. There's also a brand new Chromecast. This is an older one, but there's a brand new Chromecast that came out with low power Bluetooth, so you're able to fully do that. Now, the other things that came out are a little more subtle, or they're from Nest. So the Nest Cam IQ is sitting here, and it has the Google Google Assistant on board. And that was a release or a change of the Nest Cam IQs in most people's homes. But now you see the Google Assistant right on board with this product every time it's sold. The other thing from Nest, you think about the temperature sensor. That was just a little addition, but it gives you a secondary temperature point for the Nest thermostats. And then the Nest Hello, which is still the most popular doorbell camera here, or smart home doorbell on the market today. So that all came out this year. Now, the other things that you don't really think about when you think about Google are things like the Lenovo Smart Display here. And honestly, I think, and this is the 10-inch version, I think this is the premier smart display out there. This is a fantastic device, don't get me wrong, but what Google did with partnering with Lenovo, we've seen, JBL come out with their own version, and we know LG has one now, and there's going to be more and more and more of these devices, and there's been a ton of other just speakers with the Google Assistant on board. So Google has really proliferated, if you think about their products and that expansion of all these different countries and the language capabilities that they built this year, their expansion is massive into all these different marketplaces. So now moving on to some of the capabilities we saw, and some of these you'll remember and some of these you won't, but there is a ton of capability that was built in 2018, and it surprised me as I went back through what Google had done over the year. It was surprising to think that continued conversations came out this year. Duplex, Google Duplex was released this year. Now, continued conversations, going back there for a second, isn't on the smart displays, and that's one of the things we'll talk about a little bit later when we talk about the grading of Google's year overall. Now, some little bit smaller changes. The ability to schedule routines. So Google has given you now that routines capability full on here in 2018, or as full as they ever got. So scheduling the routines was a capability, and some of those custom commands, that actually is a really, really powerful feature that you can use within routines that wasn't there in 2017. So scheduling those routines. The other thing is the ambient mode. Now, I have a clock here on the Lenovo Smart Display, and I had pictures running here, but they were going to change the camera lens there, so I actually turned this off. But the ambient mode improvements, the experimental mode, the ability to connect to Google Photos, those improvements in 2018 were a big deal to a lot of people and a big deal for these smart displays, and of course the Chromecast. Now, on top of those features, if we just skip over to Chromecast a little bit here, you had the Chromecast version 2 and 3 recently added to multi-room audio, and that's a massive change for that device. We also saw the visuals actually come out and really drop off. Now, visuals was something that a lot of people were excited about because you could get search results published on any cast-enabled device, or you could get things like weather, and there was supposed to be other little applets and features, but we didn't see a whole lot around those Chromecast devices or around that visual component to the cast-enabled devices. There were some nuances or some nuanced changes that occurred to the way Google Assistant worked. And one of the capabilities here that I'm talking about is basically that contextual home control. So it used to be they had to say which room you were talking about, but now that we group devices into rooms and we group our Google Home products into rooms, they can contextually turn off lights there in that room just by saying turn off the lights. So that capability, just a small tweak that really changed how we interacted with these devices. We also saw great improvements in terms of Duo integration, and this kind of came out really out of left field for a lot of people because we weren't clear which video service or which messaging service or which service in general Google was going to use for this kind of capability. Now, on their Google Home Hub, you can make those duo calls, you can see the other person, but you don't have a camera. So there was a real lack of focus, it seemed like, but Duo integration came this year, and works fantastically on devices like the Lenovo Smart Display. Another component that really changed here, digital well-being, and this is something that I love to see Google focusing on. They've put it in all of their Google Assistant related products basically, but the ability to limit what shows up on the devices and then limit basically what time those devices are operating or doing anything, so the downtime. So, other than alarms, for example, you don't have anything come out of these devices during that downtime, and that's really powerful for managing your home. So a couple things, we talked about alarms. Now music alarms showed up here, or the capability was basically pushed out to a lot of people for music and media alarms. So that meant radio, that meant your music on any of your connected services. Pandora was released as well, but that music alarm capability has never actually worked correctly for a lot of people. And I'm still getting these messages to this day about the volume slider basically not working for media or music alarms. So, the capability was put out. You can do it, but it will blow you away based on the volume of your device overall. And that's where schedule routines become really important for you to basically manage the volume on your device. So there's still the ability now to do those remote broadcasts. So basically from your phone with a Google Assistant application on board, or from a tablet outside of the house, you can basically broadcast to all of your home devices. Now, obviously, Google never gave us the ability to direct our broadcasts or as an intercom or a drop-in type feature like Amazon has, but they did put out this remote broadcast capability. Now, on top of that, 10,000 devices, over 10,000 devices and services can now be connected here. And I'm not going to talk about all of those, but the massive expansion this year from Google of connected services and connected products, it's incredible and it's fantastic to see, and we know it's going to accelerate with all of the partnerships they've made. So let's talk about now, ultimately, how I feel Google did over 2018. Now, it would be crazy to sit here and say that Google accomplished everything that I think they wanted to this year, and it would be crazy to say that Google has fixed everything that they needed to or need to with these devices. But they have accomplished a ton. When you think about the simplistic nature of these devices by comparison to where we are today, at the start of 2018, these were really simple by comparison to what we have today. We didn't have an interface, a physical visual interface. We didn't have that. Multi-room audio was really just out there, and the ability to synchronize audio wasn't really there either. You now have this sophisticated management system, and just the app redesign shows you how much Google is trying to fit into these devices and into the interfaces that you use. So the growth was massive. It wasn't perfect, but it was massive in 2018. And I think in 2019, we're going to see it go another level because Google has now learned how they're going to integrate different functionality and how they're going to push out different functionality, how they're going to give it to certain countries and then wait on other countries. They've learned some of their patterns, and they're not perfect, but they are going to be able to accelerate. And so I think in 2018, what we saw was a lot of learning from Google as much as a lot of learning from people for how to apply these products to their lives. Now, like I said, it's kind of crazy to say that Google did everything that they need to with these devices. I mean, we don't have continued conversations on the smart displays. That's a massive, massive feature request. We don't even have different languages than English US as your primary language on these. I mean, I'm in Canada. How hard could this be? But ultimately, those features aren't there. Again, we still have the smart displays in general, and the interfaces there work really well. Some other things that I think kind of bit Google here over the year, they still don't have a hub in these devices. This is a big deal to me because, and I talk about this in the 2019 predictions video, they need to solve this problem because Amazon is basically kicking their butt. And in terms of home automation, and there's two ways that they're doing that. Their routines capability on Amazon's side is far and away better at this point. I mean, Amazon has added the ability to trigger all kinds of things on motion and contact sensors and Zigbee devices in general. And Google has zero response for that. The best they can do is schedule routines. And that capability of just being able to schedule routines and not being able to do a lot with those routines, to be honest, they have the custom functionality or the custom ability to trigger anything with the Google Assistant, but I can't do a lot because I don't have conditions that I want to trigger a routine under or trigger some automation under. And without that, and I thought they would solve that in 2018, that really hurts them, I think, in terms of automating people's lives. And that goes hand in hand ultimately with the lack of a hub on these devices, because if they had a hub, any hub, and we've heard that there's a Z-Wave hub here, you would be able to start tying in those different devices, and then triggering those routines. And so this is where I say my 2019 predictions video has a pretty wild prediction here. I'll give you a little precursor. Essentially, they have to come out with how they're going to do that in 2019, or they're going to lose home automation to Amazon completely. So that they have to solve, and they didn't solve in 2018 for me. So that hurts them quite a bit. Now, the other thing is the app had to be redesigned, and this is where I say they had a lot to learn, and we had a lot to learn as a result, and it helps guys like me with YouTube channels, but ultimately for Google, they've got to learn how to integrate these new capabilities, functions into that application and make it easier to navigate. We don't need 8 ways to get to the same thing. We just need one easy way or 2 easy ways at most to get to the same thing. So the app redesign, I thought initially excellent, but I know a lot of people are frustrated or confused by that application. So overall, when you think about the massive amount of devices that came out, the massive amount of capability and functions, new features that came out from Google, and that huge growth in terms of integration with smart home products, services, other basically services that relate to automating your life. Overall, I get to a B grade for Google. A would have been nailing routines this year. A would have been having a hub or a system for me to build home automation under within the Google ecosystem. But B really is where I land in terms of a grade for Google this year. And looking forward to 2019, I know they're going to fix that grade. They just weren't ready to do it here in 2018. So there you have it, everyone. That's my 2018 Google home automation or smart home year in review. So as always, go ahead, click that subscribe button, join our channel here, and grow with this hugely growing industry here in 2019, and grow with us here on Automate Your Life as we try to save you time, try to save you money, and really help you get using these kinds of products in a beneficial way to your life. So thanks for watching, everyone, and we'll see you next time.